o'clock, we're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. I know there's a lot of visitors here tonight for the concert and all. If you've not had a moment or a chance to sign in, if you could please take a moment and sign in after we call to order and do the pledge, we would appreciate it. So first, we're going to all rise to the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is the roll call. Let the board minutes show there are 3 members present. Absent would be David Turner and Heather Stewart. Next is the approval of the agenda. First by Kyle. Discussions or questions? Is there a second? Second by Stacy. All in favor? Motion passes 3-0. Next under informational items is our spotlight report, which our middle school choir is here to perform for us tonight. Thank you guys for coming. What are you going to sing for us tonight?
Do we get the pickup?
So there's not going to be any TikTok songs or anything?
No.
Okay.
And then dancing.
Okay.
Well, I take that back, really once. Good evening, everybody. I'm Amber Hedges. I'm the lead band and choir teacher at the middle school. Super excited to be here to perform for you tonight. Thank you, parents, for coming out and bringing your kiddos on this rainy, kind of gloomy night. I appreciate you being here. Board members, we just want to take a moment to kind of show you what's been going on at the middle school and our choir department. We've had some great things happening this semester. Post-pandemic, it's great to get back into a routine and to be able to make music together. These guys have performed last week for family and friends. They performed twice this week, once for 5th and 6th grade and once for 7th and 8th grade. It was great to be back in front of our peers and our school friends to perform for them. And tonight we're going to finish up with a performance for you guys. This is about a third of our choir students. Just because of space, we didn't invite everyone to town. These are some students from our select choir. So these guys auditioned to be a part of this group and work with me during our extension time during the school day. So this is kind of extra. They go above and beyond just the regular choir class. And I will take just a moment to give a shout out to 2 students from this particular group. One couldn't make it tonight, but we had 2 that were selected to the All-State Choir, which is a huge deal. There are about 1,000 students that audition to be a part of this select group of students. They perform at the Kentucky Music Educators Conference in Louisville in February, and we had 7th grader Lola Stanley. And we also had 6th grader Emery Hedges. We had 3 freshmen as well that made the junior high choir. The way they divide it up, 5th and 6th graders are considered children's choir, 7, 8, and 9 are considered junior high. So super proud of all those students. Emma Wolf, Jaylee Sampson, and Olivia Hedges were the 3 freshmen as well. So super proud of all those students. We're going to stand and sing for you a couple of songs we did from our concert. This is Sarah Sponda, based on a folk song from the Netherlands. fun little ditty called A Cold in My Nose, something we've all probably struggled with this winter season. If not yet, you will. But this was a fun one that we've enjoyed learning together. Our soloist tonight, Miss Harper Knight and Miss Brenna Thornton. We hope you enjoy A Cold in My Nose.
I caught a stupid cold, lots of people do, you know, even kings and royal highnesses.
I cough and snort and sniff, I think a herd of buffalo must be roaming through my sinuses.
another song called A Bell Carol, and this is one that we did with the full choir, obviously, but these students were the ones that played the bells and accompanied the rest of the choir. So we're going to go ahead and sing for you their part and play for you the tone chimes tonight. I thought it fitting, if we're singing about bells, we might as well play them. And thanks to our resources here at school, we have tone chimes both here and at the elementary school that I borrowed. So we were able to use those and make some lovely sounds of music. We hope that you enjoyed the Bell Carol. Try not to get out of your seat for this one. You can tap a toe or snap a finger. No dancing in the aisles. All right? We're going to finish with Jingle Bells Rock. We hope that you enjoyed our last presentation for you this evening.
I don't know that I can promise you that.
No? Okay.
Jingle, 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 jingle bells rock, dashing through the snow, in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, here we go, dancing all the way, oogie, oogie, oogie,
Now, Maggie.
Rob, can you bring it up, please? Is there anybody that didn't sign in that needs to sign in?
If you're wanting to speak, you'll need to sign in as well. And then some of you just might be your first meeting.
Anybody else?
No, we did. Oh, just if you want to speak. Oh.
Yeah, well, you need to sign in regardless,
No,
but
okay, you have to sign.
get the sign sticker. Reese was rushing to a basement at 6:15 in the morning. This is, this white car.
So what was the best? And I really feel like you should be on the Facebook.
She thought about an air fryer, she said it was good or something.
An air fryer with some frozen wings that put in the middle of the plate.
Like a whole end table, like you put next to your couch.
Oh my. Too funny. Okay, everybody signed in now, so we'll move on. Thanks again to the middle school choir, that was great. That song was fun. I'm glad Kyle was there from the last one. Next on the informational items is 2020-2021 audit report presentation.
Board members, the packet for this is in the front cover of your audit report.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Morgan Ryle. I've been part of the Walton Verona School Board audit for 3 or 4 years now. I'm from Barnesden, and unfortunately, our engagement director could not be here tonight, so I'll be presenting the results of the audit to you. I wanted to first start off by saying thanks again for choosing us to be auditors in this year. It's always great to come back, and our firm does a number of school board audits in Kentucky, about 20 again this year, so we have a pretty large practice and some good experience when it comes to these audits. Looking at the first slide here, just some of the required communications that we need to discuss. It's important to remember that the audit is, as outlined in the engagement letter, it is in accordance with the generally accepted auditing standards and the government auditing standards. We also perform a second audit, which we call a single audit, and that is a compliance audit of the major federal programs as identified during our testing. Some additional required communications. Again, the financial statements are the responsibility of management. our district is, our responsibility is to plan and perform the audit, but not give absolute assurance. We don't test everything. You know, we take a risk-based approach when we're looking at the financials. We also do not perform an internal control audit. The internal controls are the responsibility of management. If there was something brought to our attention, of course, we could do some additional testing, but that hasn't occurred. So. The fourth bullet here, our audit of the financial statements does not relieve management of their responsibilities. If there are any further questions here, you can refer to the engagement letter or the management representation letter. Looking at the executive summary, the first 2 points here are the biggest pieces. So we issued an unmodified, which is a clean opinion on the financial statements along with the single audit major referrals program. That's the best you can get. So good job and good work to everybody. I want to thank Kevin and his team. You know, we didn't have any disagreements and no difficulties. They're great to work with every year and really looking at getting us the support we need. So thanks again for that. In terms of significant accounting policies, they're discussed in one of the footnotes of the financial statements. This year there was the adoption of the WVISD 84. This was a requirement by the state, and it essentially moved the school activity funds to the governmental funds, which then roll up into the district-wide statements. And if you recall, they were previously accounted for as a fiduciary fund. So you'll see there was a prior period adjustment posted for that. We had to retroactively make this adjustment. However, there's nothing of concern there. In terms of accounting estimates, the biggest one here is the depreciable lives of assets. It's just important to keep in mind that there is an estimate piece involved there. And when we are doing our testing, we do look at some of the asset lives to ensure that they are consistent with how they've been applied in the past. Again, there were no internal control matters reportable, and there were no matters of fraud or legal acts that would require communication. So great work there, and any other communications would be found in the management representation letter. The next slide, we just quickly like to point out if there were any audit adjustments of significance, and there were none this year that came up during the audit. So again, great work to Kevin and his team to keep everything clean and in order. So the next couple slides, we like to look at some trends, over the past couple of years, and compare on a district-wide basis along with some of the individual funds. So this first slide, we're looking at the statement of the net position on a district-wide basis. You can see we break out the assets and deferred outflows, the liabilities and deferred inflows, and then the net position alone. So when I'm talking comparison here, I'll stick between 2020 and 2021 as we compare last year to this year. So you can see that your deferred outflows and assets are up from the prior year, which is great, and your liabilities and deferred inflows are down slightly, which is also great, which also resulted in an ultimate increase in net position, which is awesome. The next slide, we have the district-wide net position analysis. This just breaks down the various pieces that are within your net position. So you have your investment in capital assets, and that's your fixed assets, your buildings, your land, your equipment, etc. And then your restricted piece in the middle, that's negative, however, not to be concerned there, it's strictly the OPEB and pension liabilities that are required by the state, allocated by the state. And then your unassigned piece is essentially the piece you have the most control over, your available for use funds, we'll say. You can see they're up from the prior year, so that's great, a great trend to see there. On the next slide, we have the revenue over expenses on a district-wide basis. So you can see your revenues and expenses over the past 5 years have pretty much stayed in line. They're increasing and decreasing at similar rates. I think it's important to note here that your revenues are above your expenses, which is awesome. You're operating at a profit. And while there was a slight decrease from the prior year, there was nothing of concern there. The next couple slides will dig down into the general fund alone. So this first slide here, we have the balance sheet trends for the general fund. You can see a pretty big swing between 2020 and 2021 when it comes to your assets. There's a big increase there, and that's strictly due to cash on hand at year end. So you're able to keep some cash, not spend as much. liabilities, which again cause your overall fund balance to increase, which is great. And then looking at the revenues over expenses for the general fund alone, again, important to note here that your revenues are above your expenses, and your revenues did increase slightly from the prior year, while your expenses were able to decrease those slightly. I think it's important to note here that these are the items within the general fund that we have the most control over, so you're able to keep your revenue up while cutting some expenses in places.
Just real quick, some of the cut in expenses were things that we were able to use, some of the ESSER funding for recovery, kind of free up the general fund to handle things that you know, do the recovery mandates.
On the next slide, we break out the tax revenues for the general fund. I'm not going to spend as much time here. You can see your trends are going up for your largest, which is your property tax, and then your other tax receipts are much lower in a dollar amount, and they're pretty consistent year over year. The biggest change being the PSC property tax, again, with an increase for the past 3 years.
And just like our general property tax, PSC tax is like Public Service Corporation, so AT&T Duke, all of their assets within our community, just like everything else, have increased in value.
On the next slide, we're looking at general fund revenues by source. The top chart here, we break out your tax revenue and your state revenue, including and excluding on behalfs. I think it's pretty general across all the districts that we look at, that it's pretty steady line over the years. So I don't think there's anything of concern there. And then the bottom chart here are dollar amounts pretty minimal compared to other revenues. You can see your the orange line here is increasing over the past 3 years. That's various miscellaneous items, and your earnings on investments are down. But we've seen that across districts due to it's strictly the interest piece there. So. The next slide, we have revenues over expenses for food service. So you can see there was a huge drop in your expenses from the prior year. And again, I think that was due to being able to shift some funds around due to all the ESSER funds and the COVID relief funding that was received. There was also a decrease in revenues, and that was due to a decrease in lunch sales. That was the biggest thing there. So. For the last slide here, we just like to put together a payroll summary. On the left here, you'll see Walton Verona independent compared to other districts. And when we're looking at other districts here, those are only districts that we audit that are of similar size. So of the 20 that we audit, those that are within the same revenue, within a range of revenue that you all are, that's who we're comparing you to. So you can see that your salaries are slightly below the other districts on average, along with your on behalfs. And then on the right here, we have salary expenses and percentage of receipts. There's not quite as big of a gap there. I don't think there's anything of concern on either of these charts. It seems to be something that people like to look at, so we tend to include it here. So with that, I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
So go back to, on this slide,
Sure.
who are you comparing us to? People in our region, people all over the state?
So we audit 20 throughout the state, not necessarily.
People that you audit?
Yes.
Okay.
So the 20 that we audit, most of them are within Northern Kentucky, I would say. However, we do have some as far down as Lexington and Louisville. And it's based on your revenues. So, for example, $20 million to $50 million revenues are all grouped together here. And then the low end of that will be grouped together, and the upper end of that are grouped together. I don't have a list in front of me of who is actually grouped in with you all. I can get that back to you.
Yeah, it's and then, like the food services, were we not, I take a guess at why, but were we not like refunded some of that expense by the
We were.
feds or the state and just put it in other funds or what?
The prior year, so in fiscal year 20, all food service programs kind of took a bath because
Yeah, we were doing good.
We didn't have 3 months of revenue coming in, but we still had the same expenses even if we were serving less meals, we still had all the payroll expenses, which is, is 80,
Okay.
not as much in food service, but so we leveled out more last year. We took some of the ESSER money to kind of stabilize that fund. I would say this year, barring some unforeseen equipment expenses that we've got coming up, we should have a pretty good year in food service. We're making $15,000 to $20,000 a month, so we cover some of those things. And that is, frankly, that's due to the fact that all students eat for free this year, and the reimbursement rate for us from the federal government is higher for that than if
We're paying a lot.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Morgan, you hit several data points tonight. Could you give us, as a school district, from a financial standpoint, how healthy are we? Do we have reason to be concerned? Are we about average? Are we, way above average? How are we doing?
Yeah, I would say of the 7 or 8 that I work on, you're relatively healthy. Again, if you look back at your general fund specifically, with the fund balance, the big increase from the prior year. I mean, you've increased consistently over the past 5 years, which that's what we like to see. That's healthy. I can't say I see this large of an increase in other districts that I've worked on this year. So I have to say kudos to you all and good job. This is a very healthy fund balance that we like to see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would say 2 major factors in that are the strong increases that we've had in property assessments the last couple of years. And if you look at chart to the right, our payroll expense, 80% is kind of the threshold we try to stay under all the time. And you can see we outpace other districts on average with maintaining that. So those are kind of the 2 key things that drive that.
Yeah, I would say that property value increases everywhere around here, so I'll give kudos to you and you all, all of you all for doing what you gotta do, because if we're looking healthier than other people, we all have the same property increases in Northern Kentucky. So I think that's good.
Just real quick, I'd like to thank Morgan and the team at Barnes Zinnig. They do a fantastic job for us. We have had other auditors in the past that I wouldn't make that same commentary about. So I appreciate all the hard work they do and kind of guiding us through this process. And it's been a little more challenging, I guess, the last couple of years with doing a lot of stuff virtually, but it's worked pretty well. And thank you. And I told her we put her on early so she could go home. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for having us on. Everyone have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Thank you. Next, we're going to go into principals and bridge report. Liz, you want to start?
All right, so, from the elementary, there's not a lot of data since the last time we spoke that I'm able to report to you, just a handful of quick highlights. First thing I want to point out is that in the October meeting, you all have approved that first grade instructional assistant position that I was able to purchase with my school SPDM funds. And we do have that person in place. Her name is Megan Drake. She's subbed for us quite a bit. And she's been working with our students. And when I sat down with the first grade team and we were talking about how do we envision this position to look for us, the thing that they made clear, and it was kind of nice because it was kind of the expectation I was going to bring to them, but I didn't need to. They're like, we want this person working with students. We don't want them here just to run copies for us. We get volunteers and other people to do that for us. And that is what she is spending the vast majority of her day doing, is working with our first graders specifically. We're able to get them a little bit of extra support. My teachers have heard me say, till I'm blue in the face, I think the most important thing we do as an elementary school is we send first graders out being as fluent readers as we possibly can in preparation for what's going to come down the road. So I just appreciate you all approving that position. That's something that I think is going to have a great impact, not just for my school and our first graders, but for the district as a whole moving down. So thanks for that. Other thing is our first coordinator, Trish Pollard, arranged for the Big Smiles Dental Band to come They were there for 5 days. They were initially scheduled for 3, but we had enough students where they warranted adding a couple extra days. We had 77 students that had screening, 75 sealants, 64 cavities. 2 students received urgent dental care. This was all free of charge to the students. So not only are we getting dental help to our kids, the thing that is also exciting on top of that is we estimate about 162 days of school were saved by students not having to leave to go and do these appointments. So that's a huge blessing to us. And the last thing I'll leave you with, this isn't on your board report, but today we were able to do our Polar Express with our kindergarten students. I live streamed that through a YouTube feed, and according to that, we had 118 views on there, which is fantastic. A lot of parents that even normally wouldn't be able to get out and see it because of their work arrangement were able to watch that. And I don't think we've ever had over 100 parents come in that regard, and our numbers are getting up big. So bringing that many people into the building right now presents a little bit of a challenge for us. So we were able to do that, and that was super exciting. And I know that's not necessarily the most academic centered thing, but in terms of a culture piece for our building and making those little guys feel like $1 million, it's huge for us. So it was super exciting to do that. We didn't do that last year, so it's fun to do that.
It's good to see that back.
Yes.
And I was glad about your live stream too, because you got people that work for us that can't really get out and work short staff. So it's really good for them to be able to see their kid.
I have that recorded as well, and it's an unlisted video, so I shared that link with my teachers so they could send out to the parents that weren't even able to catch the live stream, but they could go back and watch that as well with parents. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Good evening. Just share a couple things with you. Gave you our discipline report that I shared with you before. The trend in a couple areas is different than we've seen in the past. We did over the last month or so target some behaviors we've been seeing. I appreciate Dr. Baker's help with that as we talked through some things and what we're going to do to address it. And we have seen that level off a little bit, so we're looking for that trend to continue. The chart I shared with you, normally, if you look over towards the right side where you see the weekday events, the days that things are happening, and the event times, the way those look right now, those aren't normal. They're pretty even across days of the week and across times of the school day. That is normally more like a bell curve. As we get towards Monday, there's not a lot of behaviors. As we get towards Wednesdays, it kind of spikes a little bit and then goes down. Same thing during the day. The morning is fine, and they get the lunch, they get together, and then it kind of goes back down. So some of the things that we were seeing and needed to address are kind of is one of the reasons for this trend. Just students getting back to everyday school after a year and a half, reestablishing some expectations and things. So I'm hoping that the next time I share this with you in the spring, we'll see more of that normal, what we kind of expect to see at times with behavior. But what we've done over the past 5 weeks or so has really helped squelch those behaviors that we have been seeing that aren't normal. It's really has been with mainly our older kids, but it has been much better. The feedback from teachers and other students is better, so we were able to address that. So the other thing we did, and they've done this, and Mr. Nash did this as well, we've done this a couple different times, is just review the code of conduct with teachers. Sometimes teachers feel like we're counting write-ups from them and us. We preach over and over, that's not what we're doing. Here's the level 1 thing, if kids are doing this, those are the things you need to take care of. If it's at this level 2, you write a referral, there's no questions asked about that. So that was a great exercise for them to go through because it cleared up for some, and that really helped them more appropriately deal with some of those lower levels of the things getting up to levels. So, middle school is tough as it is, but it's been a little bit more challenging this year than it has in the past with some of the behaviors we've been able to address those. We will keep an eye on this data moving forward. The other thing I gave you when we talked about the learning loss is the things we're doing a little differently with our Bearcat extension and with our ESS programs. I gave you some initial ESS data here from Mr. Mylar, who's our ESS coordinator this year. So started the ESS a little bit later than we normally do. We wanted to make sure that we had the expectations out there and had everything in order. And we gave you some initial data there from each grade level of who's studying for what and what we we've seen so far, so we're going to look to build on that. Gave you some other dates and things, but any questions about either of those two main things, or data points I want to give you tonight?
I have some. Can you tell us about some feedback from the teachers about the behavior?
A lot of things we were still like since or before.
Oh,
So,
I mean, like, or do they feel like what we're trying to enforce is working? Are they feeling more support? Are the kids realizing what's going on? Like,
absolutely, yes. PLCs today, we kind of came back to some things, and, you know, one of the things now is we're checking grades. We've got a handful of, especially some of the older kids, the younger kids, not so much, we've got a handful of kids failing multiple classes. And, you know, when we were not in school, that was a common thing for kids we didn't normally see. We're getting back to some of our kids that have had that in the past. We talked about some of the plans that we're going to have for some of those high flyers, what we're trying to do, and being able to utilize a little bit of the learning lab to get some of those kids caught up. And then we've also got some kids that have been on that list for a while with the grades, but the behavior has been really helpful. And that's been in cooperation with them and making sure that they understood what we were going to follow through the day. It didn't even tolerate this. Some of the behaviors were happening. And this isn't me trying to blame teachers. They just weren't reporting it or reporting it late. So we needed to work on that together. And that's really been the biggest thing, because it's not the first time I've heard teachers say that, you know, well, I don't know if I should write them up because, you know, are they being counted? It's like, we're just dealing with behavior here. So since they've been able to we've been able to reestablish the expectations for write-ups and what we're going to do, and especially dealing with some of those problematic behaviors, that it's been much better. And the feedback from that has been very positive on my end, I believe. With what Dr. Baker shared in his roundtable, he kind of got the same feeling. So at this point, what we're doing is working, and we're still, you know, things will still come up with discussion.
so do you feel like the kids that were the repeat offenders, for lack of better terms, have realized that we're not playing any longer, and that, like, if they were constantly doing, and they were suspended for this many days, are they starting to kind of realize that the behavior is not going to be tolerated? They're kind of,
you know, one of the things was one of the main things was some of the disrespect and the inappropriate language. It's not even that kids were using inappropriate language towards the teacher or someone. It was just they were saying it, and it would lead to other things. So once we started addressing that more harshly, they're like, oh, okay, it's time to cut that out. So those behaviors, and you can see on the left side there, that orange column shows the event types, and things like profanity and disrespect are higher. I'd like to run, what I really should do is run those over the past few weeks to show you where they're at over the past few weeks. And I will go ahead and do that and share that with Dr. Baker, and he can share with you just to show you what the last month has looked like since we've addressed that. This is just something from that Infinite Campus tableau that I run from the beginning of the year, but I'll run one of the last 4 weeks so you can kind of see where that is, to see that those have come down because we've not been getting write-ups. The biggest thing we're dealing with now is just a handful of kids not wanting to work.
This is newer, right? This is what we talked about with the Infinite Campus. So this report isn't available from, say, this same time, 2020, 2019, correct?
It's the exact same report I shared with you a year ago in December. And I'll be happy to run the same time frame from last year. I know Dr. Baker's done some of that, and I think that our referrals.
Okay, I was thinking you were doing something new in Infinite Campus with it.
No, this report's been there.
Okay.
I've been running it for the past few years. Once I found out it was there, it was pretty easy. It was easier to run than some of the ad hoc reports in Campus.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a couple, you know, a few years of these stacked in,
Sure.
to see how they're stacking up.
And the 1920 school year probably a good one to compare it to, because that was the last year.
Right, yeah, I mean, when we were in school. The laptop damage, what's the other part of that? Like, if my kid breaks his laptop, is that it says laptop damage / and then it's cut off on here. I can make out some of these other things. Halfway down, right where they're at, right here it's got highlighted.
Oh, okay. So we record those there, and if it's laptop damage that is not accidental, it'll go in here.
Okay.
So if we have one where, I'll give you an example. The kids horse playing, they drop their device, or, you know, we get some kids to walk down the hall trying to play on it or whatever between classes, and something happens stood there, that might not be accidental compared to, we had one sitting behind the door, the teacher opened the door, didn't know the laptop was there, they said there's something on the ground, use the restroom. So if it's accidental, we deem it accidental, and it doesn't go in here, we track it another way, but it becomes a discipline issue if it's something that's more in the student's control.
That's, with it being cut off, that might be what it's saying.
That's just the way the report runs, and I can get more details about that.
That's fine, that's what I assumed, I just wanted to make sure. And then like the 4th degree assault, I don't know, I might be getting out of my realm here. So if you want me to stay in my lane, tell me, but 4th degree assault, it says we have 3. Are those kids roaming the halls?
That was from one specific event, and 4th degree assault is a law violation, those aren't things that we normally deal with. Anytime there's a law violation, that means the school resource officer has gotten involved and told us, yes, what you have here is this. So that was from one specific event.
Okay.
And there were 3 students involved in that particular event. That's why there's 3. There weren't 3 incidents of that.
Okay,
That on the left is the students. How many students had violated that event type? It was, in reality, it was 1 incident.
Okay.
But 3 students were involved in that particular incident.
What's the difference of the disruptive behavior and the disrespectful behavior?
So everything in Infinite Campus comes from a state-run, what is it? I mean, if you went down this list, one of the things when we showed teachers, when we started entering discipline referrals, instead of doing paper and pencil referrals, we just kept the teachers to put it in there. There is a laundry list of things that you can put as the offense that on this list coming from the state includes homicide. I've never, hope never anybody has to. These are all these things that are on there, and we don't have control over them. So when you get into disruptive or disrespectful, sometimes it can be a catch-all for things that maybe don't have another category. So like disruptive, it might not have been disruptive to a lot of people. Maybe it was just something that just, didn't have a category to fit in, but it was 2 students horse playing. Because horse playing used to be on there years ago. Horse play's not on there anymore. So you have to kind of categorize it somewhere in those categories. And a lot of times we'll just put that under disruptive or disrespectful behavior. Now, that also does kind of muddle when a kid's just flat out disrespectful to a teacher. So we try to make sure that,
And then are you able to break this down by grade?
yes.
Can you bring that?
I mean, I can tell you what it's going to look like in younger kids. There's very few discipline incidents for 5th graders and probably even 6th graders, and sometimes a little bit more for 7th and a little bit more for 8th. So,
I'd just like to see
but-
the difference in what
Yeah.
the orange column are for the older kids.
And I'll add on to that, I'd like to see that with the years past too.
I think with all the requests, we're trying to get a handle on this, because I speak for myself when I say this. Quite frankly, we've been in school for 5 months, I'm tired of hearing at all schools across the board that, well, we've not been in school, they've been out for so long, they've been in for 5 months now, right? They know how to behave, they know how to act, and I feel like the teachers have to come together, the admin has to come together, we have to come together, and we have to put things back in order, because it's just been, it's not been in order, let's put it that way.
Sure.
So, and that's to all 3 schools, that's to not, but, I mean, when we were there a day, not there for 2 weeks, here for 2 days a week, not, like, I get it, because they were doing whatever they wanted, when they wanted, how they wanted, not doing work, whatever. But now they're consistent, now they're in school 5 days a week, and they need to follow the rules again, and they need to stop disrupting other children's, learning process, and they need to stop being disrespectful and cussing at the teachers or in the teacher's room. Like, all those things that are high here all need to stop, and I feel like we're at the point now where we're 5 months in, and behavior needs to, because if we don't get it now, and we're seeing this, we're passing it to the high school, and now the high school is having more issues, and it's coming from, it's just moving all the way up. So you're just the one talking like this, and I'm
I
not
can say
just
it's middle school work.
I'm just saying, I think
Right.
for myself, where I'm like, okay, we haven't been in school for a year and a half properly, but we have now been, and they need to
Well, it's a good point. because
stop
you say-
disrupting everybody else.
Sure, it's a good point to say that because we're just now getting back into normalcy of school, behavior doesn't really connect. It's really students learning about being students again, and we're seeing that level off. That's getting
Right.
better.
Right,
If you look at my behavior list, it's pretty commensurate with just being any other normal pre-COVID year.
Right,
So we're not dealing with anything there we haven't dealt with before.
Right.
A lot of behaviors we were really struggling with were especially with some of our older kids, in fact, one specific grade level. And it's a grade level my own son's in, so, it's not like I'm trying to.
Right.
Grade level, we had about 5% of the kids in that grade level were causing our problems, and we needed to address that. We had to address it across the board, so that it didn't spread to some of those other kids.
Right.
And that's exactly what we did, and that was a big help, but, the other issues we had in other grade levels have been
Right.
very small compared to that grade level, and even the ones we had there, we addressed it, it shut down any possibility for some of those as well.
I mean, I'm getting feedback from the kids that they're seeing things happening. They're realizing that things are going on. So I know I'm glad to hear it, I'm glad to see it. I just hope the teachers stay on board with it because they have to stay on board with it in order to continue forward and make the kids understand that this
We
behavior is
reviewed
not
some things
acceptable.
today in PLCs based on, there was an event yesterday with a student that we had to address with the 8th grade, but again, reviewing some of those things, and when we get back from break, that'll be something that will constantly be on part of my POC as well as the, student achievement. We had some things today that we had to talk about making sure here at the end of the time before break and then when we return so that our time is much smoother. And Dr. Baker probably put it best as we talked to staff about this, that, if we don't get a handle on it now, the second half of the year won't get any better. So it's kind of a challenge to all of us to do better than we have. So.
Thank you.
Anything else? I will get those reports. I'm working a few days next week, so I'll share them with Dr. Baker. And then if you want to, we can talk about it more. I'll make sure they're part of my board report for January if you'd like me to.
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to thank Luke for holding off on the train building thing from last year, because I had a kindergartner last year. So I missed the train building, and thank you for that.
It's the second grade's doing it next year.
December is always a rough data point for the high school. There's not a ton to share. We're kind of in the doldrums of the academics. But I wanted to share a few things with you. We completed our ACT boot camp. We held 8 sessions after school, starting about 6 weeks before the December 11th ACT. We held sessions at 3 o'clock and at 7 o'clock for the kids that leave early. Leave at noon and come back at 3. It was problematic. And then practice, work, everything else. So we did a 3 to 7. We split them with reading, math, and then we did English, science. And we had 24 students participate in that boot camp and prep for our December 11th ACT. So it was a great group of kids to work with. We did 45 minutes per content area, so 45 in science and then 45 in reading. And then on Thursday, those kids would come back and we do 45 minutes of math, 45 minutes of English. Looking for those ACT results to come back after the first of the year to see how they did.
So that continue each year.
Pardon me?
Will this continue each year?
We did this a long time ago. In pre-COVID, the attendance got so low that they punted and went in another direction of how to help the kids. If I can get that same core of 14, 15 kids showing up all the time, I think we will definitely consider doing that. Our plan is to do it again for the March ACT, which will be focused on the junior class for that state testing accountability. Because we're in that ACT class rotation right now, 4.5 weeks per content area. But that ends January 14th. We got the test March 9th, so we'll give them a little downtime, bring that back February 1st, somewhere around there. So, we offered lots of food, lots of drinks, and then we did door prize drawing at the end for giveaways. Mrs. Hester held her college apply day, a little bit different this year. NKU and Gateway came out. They did not offer the on-site application this year, which was, I would have loved to see the on-site applications where the kids apply online, the admission counselor is right there, and it is a yay or nay with the kid in the room. They didn't do that this year, but what they did is they gave presentations on how to navigate and apply to their specific schools. So Gateway and NKU are far and above the 2 primary schools that our kids attend. So we were able to bring in those schools to talk to the kids. We also accomplished some things like senior quotes. And I got my favorite job of the year to talk to kids about graduation, our expectations, what it's going to look like, how it's going to feel, and what you have to do to be able to participate in that event. So those expectations were laid out to every senior for me on College Apply Day. Our governor's scholars applications were due. Applications were down this year, but that was what was communicated through that program across the state. So we did have our applications, and we'll move on to the state, and hopefully we get showing at that at the state level. So this week was filled with coyote testing. So we really dug into the rules, and I'm going to be completely honest, I don't know if this was a new updated rule, or it's just something that actually, like reading it with the fine-tooth comb, we were able to find. So we were able to coyote test kids twice a semester. So what we did is we took everybody that was a senior and was scheduled into those intervention required classes second semester. We took them and put them in the coyote test first semester. With no targeted instruction towards the coyote yet, but the fact that they took their ACT last March, and now we are offering the coyote in December, that is a significant amount of instruction that they were able to pick up. So we offered the coyote in math, reading, and they don't do like an English, but they do a writing. So those, we don't have to score back on the writing because obviously it takes some time. But what we saw is if they got within 2 points, we could retest them. So we took all those kids, we tested them, and we were able to get 5 students out of the remediation classes based on the coyote scores. So we'll take every kid we can get, and I'd rather do it in December than I would in May to free them up. Another round of coyote will ensue here at the end of the second semester. So we are offering the club test as usual. We have world history finishing up on the semester, so January 13th we will club those students. We send a message out to the parents and the students that CLEP is available even if you're not in a specific class geared towards CLEP. And there is an online university that offers programs. It's like if you're doing one of the science classes, it's a Purdue University professor has a class online. You can complete the class and you get a free voucher for a club test. So we highly encourage kids to do that. We are working on our failures. As you know, we had a different school calendar this year. So our semester, usually tomorrow's exam day. Kids are finishing up with their block style classes. We don't have that. We come back for 2 weeks and do exams in January. So we are going to work with our teachers to identify students who are in academic jeopardy and start changing schedules and lives starting January. So we can get those students on the right course. And at one of the previous meetings, you guys approved us as a host site for a live at 25. This is the required class, one of the options as a required class for getting their graduated license. So this is the full final stage of the graduated license program. You have to go through a 4-hour class. For whatever reason, we were not one. Nobody ever contacted us, and I'm really vague on the driving license thing. In the state of Kentucky, I'll be honest. So a parent reached out to me, said Gallatin County class got canceled. They really think it's it's problematic to go to Gallatin. So got a hold of that company, got us approved as a site. You guys A-okayed it, and we offered our first class on December 6th, and it was totally full. 26 kids, something like that, is capped. So they. Before that class even sold out, it's free, but they offered another one February 1st. We put that on the system, so that's out there for kids to do. The majority of the kids were definitely Walton Verona kids. I know there was a Ryle, I saw a girl in a Connor shirt. So 4 hours with the Kentucky State Police officer learning how to navigate the roads. It looked joyful. So, but it gets the kids that final license, and they can do like the A+ driving school that comes here and takes them out on the road. That's an option. But obviously that's a financial commitment for the parents to do that. So, any questions for me in the high school? Yes, sir.
On the Coyote test, did you say that this is the first year you've been able to kind of intervene and retest if kids are within 2 points?
We've always given the Coyote, and we can always retest within 2 points. This is the first time that we took advantage of or found out about the opportunity to test them once per semester.
Okay.
So, again, these kids weren't in any targeted class for that, but again, taking that ACT in March of their junior year to December of their senior year, that's a heck of a lot of math, a heck of a lot of reading and English that they were educated on. So that gave us the idea to get them in there, get them out of that intervention, and it will also, we'll pass those scores on to the intervention teachers so they kind of have a good pre-test score of what the kids are coming in as. That's another data point from that junior ACT.
Thank you. And then also on the PLEP test, were parents informed about that through Infinite Campus or a direct email?
Infinite Campus message.
Okay, is it possible to do a direct email? Because I know not every parent is checking Infinite Campus, and it's a heck of a thing if they're able to get this PLEP test and then get the one free as well.
So my only knowledge of the Infinite Campus Messenger system is I check a box that says they get an inbox notification or they get an email. I always check both.
Okay.
So they should be getting it sent to their email that's registered with the school.
Perfect.
And then they should be, if they have like the app on their phone, they'll get a ding that goes there. And of course, the kids do not check their email.
Right.
So we paste everything over into Google Classroom for them to see.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Rob?
Let's see. For our bridge report for this month, I'll start with our celebrations. We had one kid graduated with a 22 credit diploma, but then right before I submitted this report, another one was able to accomplish that. So I added that one in there kind of last second. We're very excited about that. So well done to those two fellows and the teachers out there for getting through. Our numbers, however, kind of remain the same as they have in previous months, just due to the fact that we're adding some kids as well. So when a few leave, usually what happens is there's a few waiting in line, and that's not always by design, just kind of coincidentally, it sort of happens that way. We did add a few kids there, so and you can see the grade level dispersal there. And there's a few other things there in the news and notes area that might be of interest to you. I'll let you read through that. But one thing I will comment on is due to our numbers and due to some behavior issues we were experiencing, we did go ahead and split up our high school students into A and B groups. And those students are designated as performance-based, which means we're not relying on their time in a building, in a seat, like we are in most traditional students. So therefore, you have some flexibility there to make creative schedules with those students. So we've been able to kind of manage our groupings a little bit more, put kids where they fit best with other students, and that has helped tremendously here this past month. So little news there. We did a little work on our basement here this past month as well. It was looking a little rough down there, but we weren't really using it. So the basement of the bridge building is, it looks like your unfinished basement that you have at your house. So it is suitable for a classroom. And we're still kind of working on that a little bit. Potentially, we will have some new students coming our way, so we're just kind of prepping for future expansion. So that's about it for the bridge report. Unless you have any questions for me.
Who's giving Caitlin's report?
I'll just comment.
So you might as well say.
I was going to say it's not on the. I'll just comment quickly. Caitlin is a new mother for the third time and is not with us this evening, but her report
is included in your packet, and I would just point out that we are now at a total enrollment in our preschool of 95 students. So we're continuing to grow into this building as intended.
Thank you. All right, next, the attendance report, Rob.
Moving into attendance, month 4 closed out last Friday, and our numbers are still kind of hanging there in that middle 90s range, which I'm happy with. As you can see there, we have you kind of move across the page, left to right, you do sort of notice a pretty steady drop. Not a huge drop, but it is dropping each month. So in speaking with the principals about that, we came up with a few things that I thought made sense. You know, I just was kind of my own curiosity. I just sort of wondered if they had noticed any trends that might explain that. And it was things like just kids being generally sick and parents not sure about sending them back, if they should send them back, or perhaps they're getting advice from a doctor to keep them at home a little longer than maybe they might really have to, which might be accounting for some of that. Some kids, another thing that we think we could be dealing with here is the fact that kids, if they're feeling a little ill, can go ahead and take that liberty to stay home and work from home like they used to be able to do during the COVID era or the pandemic time, but kind of taking that liberty, I guess. So we'll be monitoring this again. My hair's not on fire about 94% attendance at this point, but we'll keep our eye on that just to make sure it doesn't go down too low. So anyway, and our enrollment stayed pretty close to where we were last month, with the addition of a few new preschool kids and looks like one new elementary kid. So we're losing a few, we're gaining a few, but we're staying pretty steady. Any questions for Matt?
So how are we in comparison to pre-COVID percentages?
Well, I just ran that. I didn't bring it with me.
That's all right. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact.
We were looking at that, actually.
I figured if you were talking and looking,
We were, and, okay, best memory serves here, okay, so for example, we weren't any lower than 97 point something by this month in pre-COVID.
which we didn't even start. We barely started off there.
Right. Okay. This might be a percentage you might see traditionally more in the month of February or March, when people are really tired of school and they haven't been outside in a really long time, and we've got flu and every other bug going around. Yeah, this is not typically a November, December percentage for us, so it is lower. Yes, I could dig that back up.
Yeah, I mean, that's enough info for what I'm asking.
Yeah, we were looking at that very thing. So, any other questions?
Thank you. Next is the construction report. Anybody need much? Yeah, sure. I was just, everybody reading over there, if anybody had any questions about certain things, or I don't expect you to read all 3 pages to us, so if anybody had questions.
I just want to put some of the timelines on there.
Yes, I appreciate that.
But I did want to correct the advertising part of that timeline is actually August.
The advertising published out for bids?
Yes, and the advertising bid, they were out for bid. I have it corrected on the next report I'm going to submit.
So it's August what?
They're all good. And you see the sanitation timeline, that was kind of pushing everything back in front for that. We did do an eco study at the complex. We're still waiting on that report to be completed from Hayes. I believe we just got it back and he's going to review it. Ventilation for the field house locker rooms, we did get everything installed, we just haven't had it programmed yet. Everything's taking a little bit longer, I can't soon as it's programmed, it'll be the ventilation. The Miracle Playground meeting did not happen. They had to go down Western Kentucky, so they rescheduled that. They did start the greenhouse concrete actually today. So we got it. And on the energy project, I did revise some of that and pulled out some of the softball, baseball items. And try to get it back to where, when you do the project, it'll be a self-funded project where you pay for it with the savings of the bond. I felt like that's probably the best way to spend the money on an energy project, is where it pays for itself. That's what your goal is in the end. And the mobile building is pretty much done other than the painting, but they are occupied in that building currently, so we just have to wait till they're not there.
So that's gonna be done at a winter break, I guess? That's what it
Yeah.
says, okay.
That's the goal. I don't know how much winter break we have for it, but try to get it done back up. I mean, they're already using it, so the walls won't really look that great.
Any other questions for Jeremy about construction? Thanks, Jeremy. Next is superintendent's expense report. Did everyone have a chance to look at that? And next is personnel. Next is other. Dr. Baker.
Board members, I think everybody's aware of the events in Western Kentucky over the weekend, and we have an alumni who is a superintendent of Dawson Springs Independent, and we joined with Ludlow Independent, created a GoFundMe account. Ludlow actually created the account. We've been publicizing that. At this point, we're approaching $15,000 in that GoFundMe account, and we will give a check to Dawson Springs, to the Youth Service Center at Dawson Springs Independent, so they can use that money to help students who have lost, in some cases, everything. Mike Borchers, the superintendent of Ludlow, spoke to Mr. Whalen yesterday. It was our original intention to deliver that check on Monday. Mr. Whalen asked that we hold off a few days. They are still trying to meet people's basic needs, shelter and food and things of that nature. And I believe his exact words were, it wouldn't do me any good if you brought me a check right now because there's no place for me to deposit a check. It brings, I think we would all agree this semester has been tough for everyone. And sometimes we think we've had a tough day. But the folks in Western Kentucky kind of redefine what having a tough day is. And they have many tough days ahead. But it's been encouraging to see all the school districts across the state and communities band together to try to help our fellow Kentuckians. So we're proud to be a part of that. Just have some folks I'd like to brag on and publicly thank. We all take a lot of pride in the condition of our facilities. And we've had some challenges there recently. Parts of our facilities for the last couple of months, not up to our standards. And that will be an ongoing process. We are working through that. But just, here recently, Jeremy and Jason Chapman have been going in at the elementary and cleaning at 4:30 in the morning before the regular workday begins. I just want to publicly thank Jeremy and Jason. Jeremy actually had to make a quick trip to Hebron today because he spilled a bucket of mop water on himself, so he had to go home and change. But Jeremy, I just want to thank you and Jason for doing that. That's certainly above and beyond. And Mr. Nash talked about the ACT Blitz. What he did not mention is that despite our best efforts, our science teachers already had commitments and there was some scheduling issues. So we needed someone to teach that science portion. So Adam stepped up and did that for our kids. So Adam, very much appreciate that. So just wanted to recognize those guys for their extra efforts. And board members, you're aware that we have a December 1 child count every year that gives us specific data on special education students and the number of kids that are qualifying. And I'll be sharing that data with you tomorrow. Caitlin obviously is preoccupied with more important things, but I'll be sharing that data with you tomorrow in your update.
Any questions? Next is audience of citizens, and we have one sign up to speak. Adam?
I'll make this really quick. Won't take too much of our time. There's a lot on the agenda still. So thank you all for the opportunity to talk. I appreciate that. So I think we can all agree we are really tired of the pandemic and wearing masks and all of that. I think we can all agree. Unfortunately, we're still knee deep in it. And taking a look at the agenda, I can't help but be a little upset that there is a thought to remove a mask mandate from the schools. We're still seeing cases rise, and the risk of contracting COVID is still incredibly high. With that in mind, we're still in a red county. Boone County, as of 2 days ago, is still red, which means public health officials and the CDC still requires us to wearing a mask indoors. That includes schools. As much as we don't like it, it is what it is. We are dealing with something that nobody should have to deal with. But it is kind of the nature of where we are. School districts all around us are still requiring masks, such as Boone and Beechwood. Everybody likes to compare us to Beechwood and all of that. They're still requiring masks as well. CDC guidelines state that universal indoor masking as well as vaccinations are the most effective way to prevent the spread of COVID. It also says that wearing masks in children do not pose any long-term risks, such as higher carbon dioxide rates within children. We have a duty to protect our children. Absolutely. And if you don't want to wear a mask anymore, or you are tired of wearing a mask anymore, unfortunately, that is a dereliction of your oath that you've taken to protect the students, the staff, and our district. It just is. You're looking to make this change right after we come back from Christmas vacation, correct? That's what's on the agenda. So you're going to send students, faculty, parents away for several weeks, and then have them come back after they've been traveling, extended family, all of that, and not expect there to be a rise in cases. We just saw the attendance record. It's already lower than normal. We want our students to be in school. I want my kids to be in school. I want everybody else's kids to be in school. So why would you remove the one thing that is keeping us in school?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move into recommended board motions. First is the approval of the minutes for the November 18th special meeting.
I'll make it.
First by Stacy. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by David. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the minutes from the November 18th regular meeting.
I'll make it.
First by David. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Kyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the minutes from the December 2nd, 2021 meeting.
I'll make it.
First by Stacy. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the treasurer's report.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is approval of the order of the treasurer's bills.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle. Any discussions or questions for Kevin? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. Next is the approval of the 2020-2021 audit report.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the surplus bid results and recommendations.
I'll make it.
First by David. Discussions or questions?
Just shocked, Jason and I were both shocked that we actually got a bid.
Yeah.
Not only did they want, the computers, they wanted the old, tapes.
And a good bid.
Which saves us, quite frankly, labor and having to pay to get rid of them, so that's a win-win.
Right, absolutely. Is there a second on that?
I'll make it.
Second by Kyle, all in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the proposed mid-year adult meal price increase.
I'll make it.
First by Stacy. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Kyle, all in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Motion
Okay.
fails 2-2.
Yeah, and I think I put in the communication that the result of doing that will be that we will probably have to discontinue serving adult meals on campus. It is a federally required thing that we cannot charge less for adult meals than what we're reimbursed, which in effect means that federal money is subsidizing those, so that is what that decision is.
Thank you.
Can we add it back to an agenda further to the next meeting?
It's required.
It was
we made
2-2,
the
right?
Change in January. So I mean, it could potentially go back on the agenda and request it, I guess.
But not until, so we couldn't serve adult meals until the next board meeting.
I'd have to look in if there's a specific date that is triggered by that, but yeah, I think it was in January. I'm not sure if there was a specific date that we had to comply by. So I can look into that, let you know. I'll send that email tomorrow.
Okay. Next is approval of compensation for teacher planning time.
I'll make it.
First by David. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Kyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is approval to make face masks optional for students, staff, and visitors as of January 4th, 2022.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle. Discussions or questions?
I wanted to talk about, could we put a stipulation in there that if our attendance had dropped like 20%, that it's mandatory masks again, without having to go to a board vote?
It's possible to amend the motion if the board so desires.
But I think she's saying like without the board coming back to reconvene the vote. Right? Is that what you mean? Like to where it would be immediate.
I think you could say as a district that masks should be optional starting January 4th, so long as student attendance stays at X percent or above. That's not,
I would say we probably need to get with Claire before making a change on the, that would just be my concern, making a change to what is on the agenda as we're sitting here.
I was just asking a question, I don't.
Okay, yeah, I'm just saying, I think that, I mean, I don't know the answer, I'm just worried that if we make a change and then we deem it that we couldn't have changed that, then.
We did ask because I didn't know where this discussion would go. So we did send Claire a question that if the board, for example, wanted to look at a different date, can the board change that motion? And it's my understanding, Carrie, correct if I'm wrong, it is my understanding that the board does have the latitude to change a motion during the meeting. That is my understanding.
A board can change the motion, whoever makes a motion can make the motion that they want, that can be amended. It has the same rules, it has to be you have to have a motion first, and then you have to have that motion seconded, and then you would vote on that. A board can also amend the agenda kind of in the meeting if there's a majority of the board who are in favor of that. So you could add a new line item, 3 board members were in favor of that.
Well, good, we can add that, we'll put that meal plan back on the agenda. Okay. If you're comfortable with it.
Agenda item during, so if, you can't discuss other agenda items while you're in this item. Right now, we're only discussing this item. To that end, I've spoken at great length about this, personally to folks, with emails to the superintendent, and at the last meeting we had, I think everyone up here for sure knows how I feel about this. I think like the gentleman stated earlier, I'm tired of wearing masks. I know a lot of people are tired, they're exhausted of this, but being tired of something doesn't mean you just stop doing it or you throw caution to the wind. And that's what I'm worried about, where we're at right now. I've had a lot of emotions on this. I'm personally very disappointed that we as a board are in this position now, because we had a plan that was in place, that was put together by the superintendent, who met with a group of experts, folks from the community, folks from the school, medical experts, and all the advice from that collective group was that we should follow the plan that was in place. And that's the plan that we had, where we had the color system, and we would move out of masks when we got into the, I believe, yellow or green area for 4 weeks, we would move in there. So we had a plan that was in place. I think throwing that plan away and just giving the decision to the board was a very poor decision. Again, we're elected officials. I don't mind voting to make that decision. I'm not concerned with that. It's just, we have, the community elects the board members to lead. The board hires the superintendent to lead. We're essentially removing that decision from the superintendent. We're giving it back to the board. That's neither here nor there. The bigger part that I'm concerned with is we're barely able to kind of keep the school running on a daily basis right now. I don't know that folks know that generally. It's not something we shout from the rooftops. It's not something that we send out an infinite campus update about. But so everyone's aware, we have teachers in all the schools who are covering other teachers' classes during their planning period, because we just don't physically have enough subs to meet this demand right now. With masks and with the distancing and with every measure that we have in place, we're struggling right now. Our attendance now is lower than it would be normally. The good thing is we're not seeing massive outbreaks. We are still seeing a lot of cases. We're seeing students who are sick with COVID. We're seeing teachers who are sick with COVID and out. It's all reflected in the dashboard that gets shared. And that's with this mitigation in place. So I'm very concerned if we move to a position where immediately after we come back from the holiday break, no masks anywhere, that we'll get into an untenable situation, and as Matt had mentioned, we'll have to be back here again making the decision to reinstate the masks. I know it's inconvenient. I also think parents should be aware that if your kids are riding the bus, they're still going to be wearing a mask on the bus, even if unanimously tonight we repeal that, because that's not within our power. That's a federal guideline that dictates that. So bus drivers will be wearing masks when they drive the buses. Your child, if the child is on a bus, they'll be wearing a mask on a bus again, regardless. It's just, I think it's an irresponsible decision to make that change now. I'm not opposed to revisiting the plan and looking at a change, for sure. I think there's some opportunity there to be a little more lenient than we have been in the past. But quite frankly, I think January 4th is the wrong decision, and it's an irresponsible decision for us to be making.
So thank you for that, David. I appreciate your opinion, and you had time to speak. I'd like to give my opinion at this time. I do not believe it's an irresponsible decision. I believe that we have more concerns with mental health of our children at this time when we made the initial plan, and the vaccines were not available for the children, and they are now. I do think that we've done a very good job of having committees involved and teacher feedback, parent feedback, and I am in support of making them mask optional pending the attendance stays above a certain rate, and if it drops, then we go back into masks. But I do not believe that we have been irresponsible as a board. Thank you.
I just was, before I go into how I feel about the mask, David, I have to say something about your statement. And you just told parents and teachers and whoever's watching this video that we're barely keeping the schools open. Where did that come from? It's not barely keeping the schools open. Yes, we're having a sub shortage, just like everybody else in the nation. But to scare people and say that we're barely keeping the doors open, I think it's a little extreme. I mean, I just want to know where you found that, because the minute you said that, I was like, what?
It's been sorry.
No, go ahead. I want to respond, because I don't know, I've never heard this, and I'm in constant contact with the schools and everybody on a daily basis, and I've yet to hear that we're barely keeping the doors open.
It's been from all of our meetings where we're constantly told that teachers are exhausted because they're constantly working, and we have administrators who are covering classes. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's fantastic that administrators are willing to do that, but it's a little unheard of this time of year to have administrators covering classes and having teachers be so overworked covering each other's classes that we just voted on and approved pay for teachers to compensate them for that. And I don't think we would have done that if it wasn't a real issue that we constantly are asking teachers to go above and beyond. And that's what I mean by barely keeping it running. I'm not saying the school's falling apart, but it's at a point where we're right on this precipice. So, it's only a few more cases. It's only a few more instances where you fall off of that and suddenly we can't get a bus driver, or we've used all of our admins for this, or we've used every teacher's available planning period, and then what? That's the issue we have.
Okay, so to address those, if you talk to other districts, every district's in this position. Every district has people from the admins covering. It's not just us. We have always had to pay the teachers their schedule or their planning period. We just haven't had to use it because we've been fortunate. Other districts, the district I subbed in for 8 years, teachers covered every single day pre-pandemic because there was a sub shortage in their districts. We at Walton Verona have been fortunate that subs like our building, we treat our subs well, our kids very well, they liked it, so they come here. So I just think that statement, barely keeping the schools open, is a dramatic statement that when people watch this video are going to be talking about, like, what's wrong, why can we barely keep the school open? It's one thing to say we have a sub shortage, and is that due to teachers feeling overworked? Possibly. Is that due to COVID? Possibly. Is that due to them taking their personal days on a bad day when other people are out? Possibly. There's a lot of reasons that go into that. I just really feel like that was a bad statement that we're barely keeping schools open, because I don't feel like that's the case. I mean, yes, we're having coverage, we're having issues, but so is every other school in the state and the nation, from what I'm understanding. I can't speak to, having spoke to them, but I do speak to a lot of schools on a daily basis and a lot of different board chairs, and we share things of what's going on and how are you combating it. And I know Beechwood's superintendents that are in the schools. I know Williamstown's superintendent is in the classroom. I know all these other superintendents are teaching. So it's not just us where we should say we're barely keeping the school open. I feel like that's just, I don't know, that was like a scare phrase to the public.
Can I build on that?
Sure.
The other thing I'd add is, thank you for the dialogue. I think you and I are honestly saying the exact same thing, but on a slightly different side of it. So I'm saying we're barely keeping it going. You just said that we've been fortunate in the past, and we've never had this issue in the past, and all the other districts are also having this problem. So that means before we were fine, now we're not fine. Everybody else is also not fine. So we're all competing for that same pool of people. And in a pre-COVID situation, we've never been on this precipice, but I think you and I are both saying, like, right now, we are on that precipice. Everyone else is also on that precipice. If we do something drastic, that's what pushes us over, and we're competing with everyone else. That's what I'm afraid of.
I see what you're saying there, but to say that we're barely doing it now means, it sounds to me, as someone who doesn't attend board meetings very often or is watching online, it's like tomorrow we don't have enough teachers in the building, we're shutting the door. That's the way it came across to me, is like we're barely keeping it open, we can't afford it to have, and you're right, we do need our teachers here, but I just don't feel like that statement was just a little bit over the top as far as like, it just sounded very over the top in my opinion, but so that's all I want to say about that. As far as my opinion on the masks and the vests and the optional, for those of you that were here before, you at the last meeting, or maybe you've heard someone told you, this is the only place where everybody has to wear masks all the time anymore. People don't wear them at work. I mean, some people wear them at work, especially if you're in the health field, but you go to Kroger, you're not wearing them. You go to Walmart, you're not wearing them. You're going out to the restaurants, people aren't wearing them. And it's neither here nor there. I said it last time. Everyone has their set opinion. You're either for them or you're not. You're either for the vaccine or you're not. Most people have their mindset, and what people say is not going to change it. So you can find reports and evidence to say that the masks work, and you can find a report that says it doesn't work. You can find one that says vaccines work, you can find one that says it doesn't. I think at the end of the day, we're all educated enough to where the difference between now and the beginning of school is, like Stacy said, kids can have the vaccines, adults, it's freely open to everyone now, not just the health field, and not just teachers, everyone can get it. And the people that believe that the masks and the vaccines work, then they can wear their mask if they feel like it works. If people that don't feel like they need their kids to wear the mask, or the masks don't work, or they're more worried about their kids' emotional and mental health, I think they should have the right. So at this point in time, I'm for giving the parents a choice for a little bit. If it goes south and our numbers and it's not even numbers to me, if our kids and our teachers start to get sick overwhelmingly, then we go back into mask and see if that works. But at this point in time, I think that everyone has taken all the power out of the parents' hands, and I think the parents have the right to make that decision. They have the right to get their kids vaccinated. They have the right to make their kids wear the mask. And at this point in time, I feel like we should allow the parents to make the final decision on that. So that's where I stand on that.
All right, I'm gonna say I'm down here waiting. So first off, I don't think it's irresponsible. We are voted in by the people of our community. It might not be the best timing. I don't know that there is a good timing for this. I'll go back to graduation of 2020 and how we were doing it. We kicked the can down the road, kicked it down the road, kicked it down the road. We're doing the same thing with the masks. So obviously, I don't think I have to talk about how I feel about it. I think that people can look on the video, and anybody that was here last time. I do worry about, you want to talk about the teacher shortage. I think there's a lot of morale that goes into that. We can talk about the pay of our subs versus other districts. There's a shortage in every field out there, not just teachers, no matter where you go. You can't go to Wendy's past 10 o'clock because they have a staff shortage. I can't go to Gaines because they have a staff shortage. It's in every field. Nursing shortages. It's across the board. So people aren't working. I don't know where they're at. I don't know how they're making ends meet, but that's neither here nor there. So I think that it should be. I think that our parents are smart enough to make what's the best decision for them and their children. I've got 3 kids in the district. 2 of them probably won't wear a mask, and 1 probably will, and that is their decision. So I feel like we've kicked this down the road. There's a lot of mental health that goes on with this. It is about the intangibles to me. It is not about all the statistics. You can look at statistics till you're blue in the face. You can't tell me what the underlying conditions that this has caused in the youth and in the teachers. I've talked to several people, several. You know, I've gotten a few on both sides of the fence. I'm glad that people are open enough to reach out with me with both sides of the opinion. But I really think that we need to get back to our kids being able to show emotion and teachers teach. You know, trying to learn how to read with a mask is really tough. And when the kids come up to the teacher and they both pull it down to talk, and they're right here, that defeats the purpose of the mask. If you really think that two masks work, between what I'm wearing and what you're wearing, then put two on. We have time to get vaccinated. I think that there's enough, and I won't go on about this because we could argue about this till we're blue in the face. I respect anybody's opinion on any of it. You can find data and statistics on both sides of it. So I think that based on the feedback I've received personally from a lot of the parents and my own personal feeling, I would like to, I was hoping to put this on the agenda and get a vote on it and see what we can do. And I am not opposed to bringing this back up and voting on it again to go back in it if that's what really I think, we think we need to do. I won't tell you what my vote will be then, but I'm ready to vote on this. We had an hour-long discussion on it last time.
Okay, is there a second on the motion?
I have one last thing I want
Okay,
to
go
say.
ahead.
I think, again, I would caution us, what's the right level? What's the right level of sickness where we would draw the line and say that's too much? I think we need to think about that. I think Stacy had a good idea of setting some metric in there. If we are going to make this decision, we should have some metric that's a bit of a safety net. None of us are medical experts. I don't know what that level is. I don't want to make something that's an arbitrary decision. The second thing that I would say is that the vaccine is widely available. That's true. Not everybody wants to get the vaccine. I would never force anybody to get the vaccine myself personally. It's a personal choice. It's a different choice when it's your body versus your child's body. I 100% get that. And so I wanted to say that I know people have talked about that's one of the reasons we would go there. But I think the compliance rate is probably pretty low with the children who would be vaccinated. And so I would say availability does not equal compliance. So don't confuse those things just because I have access to something means I've done that thing. And the last thing I would like to say, and I'll end here, is I know this is a board decision, but I would love to hear our superintendent's thoughts on this decision.
Well, I've shared, I think I've sent the board 3 separate emails about this topic this week. I've shared staff survey data, parent survey data on this topic as to how people felt about this particular motion. I've also shared the third email just today, and we're speaking with Stephanie Vogel, who is a public health expert at the Kentucky Health Department. Let me say, my opinion is partially formed by the fact that my wife's a pharmacist. She works at St. Elizabeth at Edgewood and has literally stood in the room and watched people die from this. I'm a proponent of science. I believe in that, this is a very real thing. I'll share, I think it might be a surprise, I'm vaccinated, so my wife or my kids. I put together a plan a while back, fall break. I just said we would stay in masks. Masks will be required as long as Boone County was in the red or the orange. We had a little glimmer of hope. We went to orange for 5 days in a row. I thought, okay, we're getting close. Then we go right back to red. At this point in time, I'm not optimistic that Boone County will be in the yellow for 5 consecutive days until spring. So on the one hand, I do believe in the science of this. I believe it is real. I believe it is serious. But I also think we have to consider something that has not been discussed. we have to consider what will our community accept. Okay? I think that, and I think we all agree on this, right? We're all tired of these. But we all agree that we want them off, and we all agree that we want our kids in school. Okay? So my advice to the board is, if you're going to go this direction, that's fine. I think it will be met with, you know, I think the majority of our staff, our students, and our community will be happy with this decision. But my recommendation to the board is, if you go this direction, there needs to be some metric in the motion that automatically triggers a mask requirement. Now, understand, if you say 90% attendance, okay, that's not dealing with COVID. That's dealing with attendance, which could be food, it could be stress, it could be a number of things. If you want to deal with COVID, it needs to be a measure of the confirmed positive cases in our district. But if you go that route, people may not go get tested, and if they're tested, they may not be honest with you. Okay? This is it's a tough one. My recommendation is, if you go this route, we need to amend the motion and have some type of metric that would automatically trigger a mask requirement.
What is your recommendation for the metric?
Well, I think our goal is to stay in school. So I think we need to set a number for student attendance and teacher attendance.
But can't that be, you have a student out, and a teacher could be outside, I mean, it's not just teachers getting it.
Well, if all of our teachers here and 75% of our kids are here, we can have school. If 100% of our kids are here and only 75% of our teachers are here, we can't have school. So it's, you gotta, my opinion is, you need two metrics, one for student attendance and one for teacher attendance. We're at 94% right now. Rob talked about that. My suggestion is 90% for students. I'll be perfectly honest, I hesitate to say 90% for staff, because I think our staff attendance has been lower than student carrying over this better than anybody.
Say, do we have the metrics that we're at currently?
I can get them, I just can't get them to you now.
Yeah, but the metrics, are they COVID related, or are they just sick off? Just a day here, a day there, or are we 10 days?
Yeah, I mean,
There's a difference.
If we're at 85% teacher attendance and we make the benchmark 90, you know, we need to know where we're at before we can.
Yeah.
No.
So we don't know what the teachers' rights is, what we're saying.
I mean, we could look into that and see, I mean, it's gonna be lower than 90.
I would offer that a solution would be to table this until we come back in January, and that gives us time to collect the data. And if the data is sufficient, then we can make that decision. Otherwise, again, we're just guessing on a metric.
When is our next meeting?
It was,
January the 6th.
Okay, well, then my vote is to vote on this as is, and we can make the change then, if we would like. We can go ahead and vote on it. We can do the same thing.
So you would approve this motion as is, and then on the January 6th meeting, you would approve a motion to put
Potentially.
the metrics in.
Potentially.
Okay.
Because again, if not, we're just kicking the can.
Yeah. I mean, that enables us to do what everybody wants. Let's keep our kids in school. That's what we all want. What I want.
Yeah, we just, and I'll just go on the record as saying, because we've all discussed it up here, and, you know, people are seeing me here with no mask, and look, I've had my mask on a lot. I've been vaccinated. It's not that I'm anti-mask, anti-vax, anti-this. I'm tired of seeing the mental health aspects of what's going on in this. I know it's real. I've lost 2 people this year to this disease. I've watched my dad come out of the back of an ambulance to this thing. I realize it's real, but I also know that mental health is a major issue, and that's something that we can't track, we won't be able to track, and could go on for years. So,
All right, is there a second on the motion? Kyle made the first.
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy. All in favor? 3, all opposed?
Aye.
1, motion passes 3-1. Next is the approval of DD5 for Walton Road Elementary School paving 2021.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle, discussions or questions? Jeremy or Kevin, any input?
Let's just close out project.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Stacy. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the owner-architect agreement for the Walton Granite Intermediate School.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle, discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy, all in favor? 3, all opposed?
Aye.
1, motion passes 3-1. Next is the approval of the field trips.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle, any discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is approval of the prom contract for 2022.
I'll make it.
First by Kyle, discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy, all in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next to the agenda is adjournment.
Megan, do you want to revote on the adult mid-year price increase?
Yeah, I would like to make a
Okay.
motion that we bring that back to the table.
So O will be, next we'll make O, approval for the proposed mid-year adult meal price increase. Is there a first?
I'll make it.
First by Kyle. Any additional discussions or questions?
Did we pay the difference from what we're getting from the government? Can we cover that difference, so we don't have to charge the teachers more?
Whether you can or whether you should, I think are 2 different things. I think it sets a dangerous precedent that we started covering optional expenses for employees.
Okay.
Because then it could be viewed as,
Okay.
this one's getting it, and this one's not.
And quite frankly, I'm not sure if that's an appropriate use of taxpayer.
Yeah.
I understand. That's why we're having a discussion.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I vote to raise it because it's federal. Just, they're saying we need to, not really by choice. I'm not trying to make teachers pay more for their meals, but at the same point, I ain't trying to take it away either.
Or we don't offer it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there, first by Kyle, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Stacy. All in favor? 3, all opposed? What? In favor, David?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next P is adjournment.
I'm gonna go on the record for my first time on adjournment.
First by Kyle. Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. We are adjourned.